Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Voices of the Data Economy. This one is a continuing conversation with Trent McConaghy, the founder of Ocean Protocol. In first part of this interview, we spoke about the focus of the core Ocean team at this point. What has Ocean Protocol been building, and what was its focus in the year 2022? And the upcoming use cases of Ocean, including its focus on DeFi. In this particular episode, Trent continues to talk about Ocean's upcoming use cases in 2023, the future of AI, and the industry dynamics in general in crypto. So I hope you enjoy listening to this one. This is season 2 of Voices of the Data Economy, a podcast supported by Ocean Protocol Foundation. We bring to you the voices shaping the data economy and challenging it at the same time. Listen to founders, tech policy experts, and pioneers in impact investing, all sharing their relationship with data. So now, Trent, what do you carry forward to 2023 from here? So I gather it's VE Ocean and data farming as the two main focus areas, and then so now and DeFi, of course, I also gathered is one of the focus. So what for 2023 now? What do you have any benchmarks? Do you have something in the team that you want to achieve? Because we really want to take that away, like we had
Yeah.
from your last interview where you said what you are looking forward to. So tell us about that.
Yeah. Sure. Right before I get to that, I do want to just cover one other brief aspect from the last half of 2022.
Ocean DAO.
Well, actually, that's related too. I guess I should cover that too. And then I'll get into 2023. So
Okay.
I've so far the second half of 2022, I've talked about sort of the product from an ocean market standpoint and data farming, a VE and data farming perspective. There is also the product from an Ocean DAO perspective, and that has evolved. So Ocean DAO, when we first conceived Ocean, we had it where it was going to be fully automated, all that, right? And then DAOs started taking off, and we saw some really great DAOs out there where they had governance in a way that we thought was an excellent model, and we still believe. Gnosis DAO, Balancer DAO are great examples of DAOs that really came into their own in the last year and a half, right? Where it's helping. Those are really helping to grow the ecosystem. And there's others, but those are probably the two best in class, in my opinion. And we also saw that we could get it move towards that by starting with grants. So we created Ocean DAO and had it focusing on grants. And we actually have two different grants programs from that sort of the Ocean core team was driving. One was Ocean DAO, which was bottom-up grants, where the community was voting with their Ocean tokens and curating. And via that, we had, I believe, there was more than 200 teams that got grants, or 200 grants given out over time, to at least 100 teams, maybe 200 as well. And that lasted for 1 month short of 2 years, so 23 rounds once a month, and some really great projects came out of that, right? Including some of the ones I mentioned, like Delta DAO and Felt Token and more. And many, many more, like just countless that I'm very proud of, that I'm very happy for in the ecosystem. And then, so that's the one grants program. The other grants program is Shipyard, which is curated by the core team, the Ocean core team, where and they work more sort of much more hands-on and closely. Then with Ocean DAO, we saw that a couple things. We started asking how much. Well, first of all, we saw issues with Tornado Cash and Uki DAO and all this, right? And we worried that if we went to this DAO where it was managing a large treasury, then it is risky. The biggest risk is the risk of being captured. So if we had a large treasury, then any organization can get captured where it strays from the original intent. Visa is a very nice example of this. Visa was initially intended to be, always as a credit card, but it was meant to serve, the mom and pop shops just as well as the banks. But it got founded with just the banks, and then they never ever gave up control to the mom and pop shops or eased control. So every 5 or 7 years or so, there's another class action lawsuit from the mom and pop shops to the banks to Visa,
Okay.
because Visa charges them 5 or 7%. So Visa accidentally let itself get captured early on, and the founder of Visa, in his memoirs, excellent book by the way, he talks about that. His greatest regret was basically allowing Visa to get captured so early on. And there's other, organizations that have been captured over time too that mean well, but eventually get captured. And so we asked ourselves with Ocean, do we need a DAO with a big treasury for the Ocean ecosystem to be successful? And we realized that the answer is no. The answer is no because people can get funding in the near term via Shipyard or by data farming, right? And data farming is very good. Actually, in the DAO, we for grants, we realized, people were gaming it in a few different ways, and we realized the best thing we could do is have retroactive grants. Only have the community give grants once something has been done, as well as we wanted it to be as objective as possible, and as objective as possible towards data consumed volume. And then we realized, well, what's end game for that? And end game is data farming, right? End game is so we realized that if you take, Ocean DAO grants to their logical conclusion, it looks a lot like data farming. And we also saw that, in the meantime, we were going to spend a lot of time on Ocean DAO grants, administering it, et cetera. And we realized for all the time and effort we spend on administering that, we could make data farming really awesome, faster, sooner, right? And so we decided, you know what, let's wind down Ocean DAO grants and then instead evolve the DAO to be much more decentralized and automated, the D and the A in DAO, and in the end, it looks like data farming. And by the way, this is then Ocean DAO ends up looking a lot like Curve DAO. Curve DAO is basically kind of like data farming in that sense, right? There's CRV, there's the VE CRV. There are rewards. There are people staking. You get rewards based on how much you stake and curate in the system. Same thing happening now in Ocean, right? So Ocean DAO lives on, but in a very different form than it was, say, 6 months ago. 6 months ago, it was mostly around the grants, and now it's there in the form of VE Ocean and data farming, which is long-term sustainable. We tend not to, call it day-to-day Ocean DAO and stuff, but it truly is that, and it truly lives up to this idea of, DAO, decentralized and automated organization, right? And how it's coordinating the people among is with that single straight objective function of data farming. Just like Bitcoin is a DAO too, with that
Yes.
single straight objective function, coordinating all the miners, etc. So that's sort of the evolution of DAO. Like I mentioned, I'm very happy with all the teams that it helped to spawn, and those teams are now many of them are very active in the Ocean ecosystem, building great stuff. So I wanted to mention that as sort of some nice successes over the last 2 years, and they continue to build out. And then also in terms of traction in the last 6 months, we've seen really great things with the work from the Delta DAO folks with Gaia X, and the various folks of Gaia X with Eccentric and many others, like I mentioned. One other thing I wanted to mention, throughout the last several months, the core team has been spending more focus on DeFi for the reasons I mentioned. It's much shorter data value, it's fast in terms of data value creation loop, and it's got a large addressable market. And while it's focusing on driving that, it's not constraining Ocean Stack from any other vertical. So in doing that, it's really two things. There's the data farming stuff, which is general, but it's also adjacent to DeFi, of course, because of just the mechanics. And the second thing we said is, what else can we do to help bias towards DeFi? We already had these challenges running on things like the agriculture data challenge, and the energy data challenge, etc., with various collaborators and partners. So we decided to start turning on more challenges around DeFi itself. And sort of the top of the list one is something we call the Predict ETH challenge. We've had it twice so far, actually 3 times, including a hackathon, and we'll be having more of it. And it's very simple in premise. Can you predict the price of ETH, right? Can you,
Yeah.
1 hour ahead, 2 hours ahead, etc. And of course, and there's basically, we have it. It's typically been once every 2 months so far. And whoever predicts the price of ETH with a best accuracy wins, and also second and third place.
How
But
close?
and if
How
how
close were
close?
they?
Right.
No, I'm
Yeah.
just
So
curious. Yeah.
no, for sure. That's a wonderful question, actually. So first of all, yeah, right now, it's not that accurate. yet.
Mhm.
But this is why we're doing it iteratively, right? Because we want to help bias the ocean community, as well as it's a way to pull people in to using ocean in something where if they can actually crack that data science problem really well, they can immediately, start trading on their own or selling that data too, right? As a data feed via the ocean ecosystem. And ocean is designed at the heart of it to make it really easy to sell your data feed predicting the price of ETH. So this is where, kind of one example of where ocean is headed. So imagine you're a data scientist, you come up with a really great algorithm to predict the price of ETH, but you really hate DevOps. You really do not want to do any DevOps to stand up a server and give that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you don't want to, give your algorithm to someone else to run in their server and stuff, right? What do? Well, you have it served up via the ocean ecosystem compute data stack, where it's your algorithm is running via the compute data stack, and then others who buy that data, they're only getting the results of the feed, right? The prediction of the price of ETH, and you you as a publisher, no one sees that except for right now, whoever's running the provider sees it. So you can run it yourself, or you can have OPF run it, or a third party. And as part of 2023, we're working on resolving it such that you don't have to run it and you don't have to trust anyone on that final thing. But even right now, you can stand up your data feed for sale and either have OPF run it or yourself if you don't want to trust OPF at all, right? And to us, we see that as, a really great archetype of a use case for ocean, where, people are bought, the data is clearly valuable if it's accurate, right? People will buy it like crazy. They'll buy it like crazy for their own DeFi trading, but also maybe for their own, to make a new DeFi protocol, right? Because we can distribute it not just as a REST API, but it could also be distributed as an Oracle on Chainlink, et cetera, right? And this shows an example of how Ocean and Chainlink play well together, right? Someone, uses Ocean Stack to create a data feed predicting the price of ETH, and it's just a feed, and then it also gets put onto on chain via Chainlink or otherwise, right? And so anyway, we've done this predict ETH competition, 2 rounds of it so far, plus a hackathon round, and round 3 will be announced in January, and it'll be due within a couple months. And we're going to be doubling down on this, right? That's one example, but there's going to be probably predictions of other tokens and other sort of DeFi related things, and that's part of our focus. And when with these competitions, right? The winners, it's in the order of I think about $5,000 for the prize money.
Nice.
And as people get closer, though, I mean, yes, it's nice, but it's not huge compared to how well you can do if you actually accurately predict, right? But can people predict the price of ETH and well enough to make money? And the answer is, if you look into traditional finance, the quants, etc., then it's happening, right? You learn about it if uh, talk to the right people, hear the right whispers within the world of Wall Street, or, interestingly, if you simply read memoirs by people who did it successfully, such as, there's a book about Jim Simons, who created a fund called Renaissance Technologies,
Okay.
probably the most successful hedge fund of all time. Another book, there's other books like that too, basically. There's a few like that, where they talk about predicting the price of stocks in that case well enough in order to, have successful hedge funds in trading, right? And so, and within crypto as well, once again, within the hallways of crypto, there are whispers, etc., where people are also doing that with success, right? So what we see is, but right now, if you want to do that with success, you need a team of 4 people, 10 people. You need to be dedicated at it for 6 months, 2 years, whatever, until you get your predictions that are good enough to use to make money in trading. But what if instead that was simply available as data feeds for the right price, right? And what if you can make it where instead of just one data feed, what if there was 50 different data feeds from 50 different competitors, right? Selling their own predictions for the price of ETH. And this is what Ocean enables, right? So it's like data feed in a box
Yeah.
for predicting the price of ETH, predicting different tokens. And so this is where Ocean is headed, right? And it's not just, predicting the price of ETH, but gives you a feel for DeFi, right? Where Ocean can really help drive DeFi. Because imagine you have a new primitive out there that has the price of, future prices for ETH and Bitcoin and Litecoin and, the top 1,000 tokens. Now you can build really amazing DeFi primitives on top of that as well. I mean, like really
Yeah.
amazing DeFi protocols on top of that.
So apart from price prediction,
Yeah.
what are the other use cases of like DeFi that Ocean can be used for? Like I'm just to get like a sense.
Yeah, for sure. So from price prediction, you can view that as a primitive, right? You can ask what protocols are possible on top of price prediction. So it enables things like if you have a loans protocol like an Aave, etc. If you have a sufficiently reliable prediction for the price 1 block ahead, 10 blocks ahead, then you can have um, you can reduce risk further. So on over collateralized loans, you can have a lower collateral margin, or maybe you want to go even for under collateralized loans. Although everyone sees how risky that is, so you can try if you want. But the point is, it leads to optimizing further on loans protocols, as well as for insurance protocols like the Nexus Mutuals of the world, around loans, around smart contracts, etc, as well as stablecoins. So stablecoins and loans are quite similar in that they have to be backed by some assets, etc. And then they kind of, right now hedge themselves well enough with being backed well enough that they don't need. So you kind of basically have under collateralized stablecoins too, is the point, or stablecoins with less margin, right? Like I mentioned before, just like loans. So stablecoins and loans, you can either have under collateralized or have less margin or reduce risk or some combination of the above. And if you think about it, stablecoins and loans are two of the biggest use cases, and they are their own DeFi primitives. So basically, future predictions can lead to better fundamental primitives within DeFi that help power the rest of DeFi. Things like AMMs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Besides that, um, so you can do prediction of the price of ETH, Bitcoin, etc. 1 block ahead, 2 blocks ahead, 1 minute ahead, 10 minutes ahead, whatever. But you can also go for longer term. So you can go for 1 day ahead, 1 month ahead, and this is super useful for treasury management, right? And so this is treasury management for DAOs, right? So Gnosis DAO, their treasury management team, Karpetki DAO, it's a sub DAO of Gnosis DAO. They have world class treasury management from what I see, and right now they have a super conservative approach, but can they optimize what they do a bit more without taking any more risk, right? Like either further minimize risk, or for the same risk, improve yield a bit, right? Or some combination. So treasury management, medium and longer term is helpful, as well as treasury management beyond DAOs, right? For centralized protocol teams, etc. So the longer term price predictions are helpful. It's for different use cases. If you want to get really aggressive, if you do predictions that are faster than 1 block, then you get into the game of MEV, where you're looking inside mempools, etc. And so predictions there, this is sort of a whole different game because it's so much, it's much more about latency, much more about sort of like the Flash Boys of Wall Street, Flash Boys 2.0, et cetera, all that, right? So there's a bunch of MEV stuff, but then, MEV is also a bit of a thorn. So can you do things with prediction to help reduce MEV or to have MEV directed to users, right? Like MEV, to buy ETH on the open market and then burn it. So, and by the way, you can do this with predicting the price of ETH or something, but you can also, instead of predicting the price of ETH, you can do what a lot of trading systems do. Rather than predicting the price of ETH, one way to generalize is simply optimize return, expected return in a particular time interval, by taking various actions, trading and otherwise, right? So, maximize return in the next 10 minutes or maximize return in the next block from this set of actions. And it can be, sub-block time scales, like MEV type. It can be, 1 block, 10 block time scales, or, up to 1 hour, which is sort of like traditional traders. And it can be longer term, which is more around the treasury management stuff. So yeah, that's a bit of a summary of some of the use cases we see for Ocean in DeFi. And by the way, we've seen a lot of these for a long time. I think I wrote about it in my data tokens post like 3 years ago.
Really? Okay.
But yeah, but we have to walk before we run, right? We had to lay down the infrastructure first, and that was the first, basically 5 years of Ocean. And it's sort of like we're hitting a new phase now, right? We've built the fundamental infrastructure of Ocean. It's hardened. We've solved a lot of hairy problems around data and sovereignty and how it relates to crypto, etc. And now we're doubling down on traction by really focusing the core team towards, where we see we can get benefits, but at the same time using that to improve and harden the stack, right? So on that, actually, I mentioned, the key user, the main user of Ocean right now is data scientists. And we've been doing a lot of work to improve things for them too. So the data scientists, the vast majority of them use Python. Python is, by far the most used language in data science. And yes, hello to you, R users as well. I acknowledge R. And there's also MATLAB and other stuff. But by far it's Python. And I've been a long time user of Python for AI and data science myself, since, the early 2000s, late 90s even actually. And so we've actually taken time to make the Ocean Python library really great in the last several months. So we've really cleaned up the interface, made it a lot easier to use. What used to be maybe 20 or 30 of lines of code where you'd have to sort of copy and paste a bunch of boilerplate. Now it has good defaults, etc. So it's like 1 or 2 lines to publish an asset, to consume an asset, to put it for sale, to put up a faucet. All of these things are just really easy now in OceanPy. And so that for us forms a really nice baseline on which, on top of that, we can do things for users to use. So for example, we recently published a README in the OceanPy repo for data farming. So basically we made it really easy for people to do, to take their Ocean and lock it into VE Ocean via a script, and then to publish assets that they think are useful or could be valuable or could be high consume volume, and then to stake against those automatically, right? So, and there's going to be other things though too. So overall, given that, for all this trading stuff that I mentioned, we also have readmes around, publishing compute to data assets, all that. So to make that really easy, such that people can then have their trading systems, their Python-based trading systems, etc., using Ocean just as another library they import, and then go with that, right? So, 1 line to import OceanPy, a few more lines to do a few, Ocean-related actions, publish, consume, etc., and then, make money, right? That's the heart of it.
Yeah. Wow, so much to absorb and so much happening. Okay, so now back to my question on 2023 for Ocean Protocol. So, what
Yeah,
does 2023 hold for Ocean Protocol or vice versa?
yeah. So ultimately, it's all about driving traction via the main metric of data consumed volume. And so what that means specifically is the core team, it will be spending more time focusing within the DeFi vertical to help drive traction there. But at the same time, with all of our work, it's always general enough to support the broader stack, as well as supporting our collaborators that are in other verticals. So within the DeFi vertical, we are going to be doubling down on doing the challenges. Um, such as predict ETH and so on, as well as supporting the flow for anyone who has a really great prediction for the price of ETH, to make that both convenient and trustless, right? Like I was mentioning a bit earlier. And kind of sort of everything around that, right? So driving those use cases around basically making it easy to publish your algorithm privately, and for others to consume it easily as a REST API or ultimately as a Oracle data feed as well. So that's one. Another aspect, the second of the two aspects, is around helping to serve DeFi protocols. So and what that means is, we have data farming. We're going to be, making that better, doubling down on that. The Ocean budget per week will keep increasing, just like we published blog posts about increasing the schedule. And we're going to be decentralizing and automating data farming. We've actually got it automated as of the last few weeks. It's running right now as a GitHub action, but we're now going to be moving that over to run on fully decentralized infrastructure. But still running on Python by leveraging, the appropriate infrastructure out there that's emerging in blockchain land. There's some really great stuff emerging. So once that's done, we will be able to have so data farming, decentralized and automated, becomes our guinea pig for decentralized and automated data pipelines. And those decentralized and automated data pipelines, of course, can use Ocean itself too, right? For publishing assets, consuming, et cetera. So now you've got data pipelines that, run end to end on fully decentralized infrastructure if you want, where there's no trust anywhere. And yet at the same time, you've got Python going on, which means you've got access to all of the great, ML and AI tools out there, right? And thanks to Ocean, you've got the ability to take any data feed, whether it's raw data, whether it's feature vectors or cleaned data, whether it's models, whether it's the predictions, any of those, it's its own asset, data NFT, data token, or the compute in between too, right? Those are assets too. So, and then you can mix and match those and make them interplay however you want, leveraging Ocean Python library, where things are now like one line of code to do any of those, right? And now the aim is for all of that to run decentralized. Right now you can do that, but you have to do it client side or server side, but you can't do it sort of decentralized server side yet, right? So we're getting there. So those are the two main things in Ocean: is to serve, call it, private algorithms is one side, and making that really easy for people to publish and monetize private algorithms, predicting the price of ETH, etc. And also call it public algorithms, where people can run their AI, their data science algorithms on fully decentralized infrastructure, where there's assets in between as well, and you can use Ocean however you want. Those are the two main focuses. And a lot of it is going to be very iterative over time, right? We have some big technology chunks of things we know we want to build. I kind of highlighted them here. But a lot of it is going to be very iterative as we learn and harden with our users, etc. And we'll be publishing a blog post that details this probably by the end of February, not sooner, simply because we're iterating internally as a team, et cetera, on exactly how we want to pursue this. But at the same time, it's been underway already for, November, December, even before, right? You've seen the Predict ETH competitions, you've seen data farming keep getting better, all that. So that's kind of 2023. Ultimately, it's all about driving traction, focusing on the core team, focusing on DeFi without constraining the Ocean stack. Yeah, that's a summary.
So I guess we'll also have more of DeFi on this podcast now in 2023. So, Trent, I see so much positive energy when I'm talking to you, so much excitement at Ocean. But I think particularly for crypto, it's sort of been like a different sentiment in the industry. So you as Trent, how do you define the year 2022 for crypto?
Cleaning time,
Okay.
right? To me, it was a lot of the fraudulent bad actors got washed away, and that is nothing but healthy for the ecosystem, right? That is, to me, I mean, it was painful. Crypto has gone through cycles every 4 years, typically so far. So this is my third bear market now, I believe, that I've seen. So it's sort of like, yeah, been there, done that, and there's always drama around all of it, and there's popcorn, all of this, but this one was nice because some of these, fraudulent bad actors were getting pretty large. And it's sort of like, thank goodness they got washed out now, because if they didn't get washed out, then it would have even hurt that many more people. And it's sad that so many people got hurt, right? Like, I think FTX had at least millions, if not tens of millions of consumers that got hurt. And that's also too bad that it tarnished the reputation of crypto. But that's centralized crypto, and ultimately that wasn't even really about crypto itself. It was simply a fraudster that was using crypto as part of its marketing engine, in a sense, right? But so be it. Whatever you call it, it's really great that these bad actors, especially bad actors that got large, got washed out, right? And maybe there's some left, maybe not. Depends who you ask, of course. So you know that's just how I see 2023. Sorry, 2022. I also see, though, obviously, first they laugh at you, then they listen to you, then they fight you, right? And we're in stage 3 right now, right? In terms of then they fight you, in the sense of when I say we, I actually mean sort of crypto versus right now. Like some nation states don't like crypto in some ways, but it depends on the nation state. It depends on the why, right? Many nation states believe that their currency is really important to the well functioning of the economy, and um, the way that the currency is designed right now, it's kind of true because it's used both as a unit of exchange and as a store of value, right? But interestingly, in crypto, there's a difference. There's a difference between VE Ocean and Ocean, right? So there's lots of different designs that have emerged in blockchain that decouple these things, and you know, we'll see. Maybe nation states will figure this out and change things around too. So, imagine if the U.S. Had its own, different coin or token as a store of value compared to as a unit of exchange, right? So we'll see. I don't expect that to happen, but because right now these things are conflated and that probably isn't going to change, then it is causing problems where they see that stablecoins in particular are, in competition with their currencies, and they want to do something about that. But that's not necessarily that isn't a problem for Ocean per se. And in fact, Ocean, like I mentioned earlier in this podcast, serves not only individuals, it's meant to serve all of the above, right? Everything from individuals to families, small family units, to companies of every size, up to nation states and beyond, as well as whatever emerges if there is a post nation state, right? So if nation states want to use Ocean, we can't stop them. It's permissionless, right? And in fact, we see that it's really useful for nation states right now, and via things like Gaia X, right, where Europe is trying to reclaim some of its data sovereignty right now, that is right now in the hands of American companies, right? So I think that's really healthy overall. Ocean is sort of this layer of dereferencing between, right, where and it's not Europe, the EU per se, controlling those keys or the European Commission. It is European citizens controlling their data, right? So I think that's really healthy overall, and it's a really interesting counter to what it looks like an apparent battle of nation states versus crypto. In Ocean, it's like we're useful to all, including nation states, but we're not going to say we're only for nation states. We're also for the post nation state, right? Like I said, whatever emerges after that, right? Whether it's DAOs or crypto protocols that end up getting like super strong at the level of nation state strong, or whether it's some other things, right? We just see that ultimately, if you can give more power to people or groups, small and large, to manage their data, that's just a win for civilization overall. So that's kind of how I see it in 2022. And in 2023, it's that as well, right? In the sense of we see Ocean getting more and more traction. From at the level of the individuals, but also the teams building on Ocean for everything from DAOs that serve the consumer to large companies like the Daimlers of the world, to nation states and consortia around that like Gaia X, right? In terms of crypto broadly in 2023, it's tough to say, right? Well, it could be bear market for all of 2023, or we could start to, climb out of it in 2 months in. Who knows, right? The Ocean Core team, we've got a treasury that is, good for years and years. So we're just building and focusing on the fundamentals. And, so we know that ultimately the Ocean price, like the health of the Ocean token, will be, it's a function of the speculation and fundamentals. And we just focus on fundamentals. And we know that, though, that token is there to help drive the health of the ecosystem for building more. And, like I described at the beginning of this podcast, the name of the game ultimately for Ocean is ubiquity, right? To become ubiquitous, it's about sustained growth over a long period of time. How do you get sustained growth over a long period of time? You make sure that you are set up well, treasury wise, et cetera, to keep building and shipping. And then ultimately, you have everything decentralized and automated such that you don't need teams to intervene. And what you have then is simply infrastructure for civilization. So, TCP/IP is that, the World Wide Web protocols are that, and now we have stateful protocols Bitcoin has become, infrastructure for civilization. Ethereum is nicely on its path, or arguably has become infrastructure for civilization, and that is the goal with Ocean 2. In its case, around leveling the playing field for around creating, leveling the playing field for data and AI.
Wow.
So yeah,
Love that. Infrastructure of civilization for civilization. Okay. So,
yes.
I mean, I just have one last question because I've been like aching to ask you this. So, you're
Hmm.
also an AI researcher. I mean, it's not linked to, but it's such like a closing question. Love to have your
Hmm.
views. So, what really excites you as an AI researcher at this point? Because, I think personally for me, people have been asking for so long that, oh, how will AI change our lives, etc., etc. But in 2022, actually, I really felt like being from more of, like artist creative community that it can really change your life. So what excites you as an AI researcher at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023?
Yeah. So I'm going to answer in two parts. First of all, I'm talking about AI changing lives, and the second part about what excites me. So AI has quietly been changing lives for decades. Um, just most people aren't aware of it. And what really happened in 2022 was the more advanced AI, um, uh, some novel creative AI hit the mainstream and raised awareness to the mainstream to consumers, and that has created more hype and stuff, but also has the technology itself has interesting implications too. So I'm going to unpack this. AI has changed, has affected lives for decades in at least one field, likely more, but I can talk about the field that I know, which is AI for chip design. Um, by the way, I should also preface AI has many definitions. If you're in a room of 10 AI researchers and you throw a rock, or each, you're going to get probably 20 definitions of AI. Each
Yeah, yeah.
researcher has at least one definition for AI, right? So, including myself. So I've actually given talks and written articles about that, the different definitions for AI. It's like crypto or blockchain too, right? There's so many different definitions. But uh, one pragmatic definition is it's a set of computer science tools that are sufficiently a mystery that they can't be used off the shelf and as a sort of technology, if you will, right? And once they do, they get a new name and they just get used off the shelf. So, things that were considered AI, spreadsheets were once considered AI, believe it or not. But nonlinear optimization, nonlinear programming was once considered AI. That's just like local optimization using gradient-based search with fancy second-order updates. And then other sort of global optimization was considered AI. Nonlinear regression, was considered AI. And that nonlinear regression became called machine learning in the 2000s, right? Operations research, automated scheduling, all that was considered AI. So a lot of the things that were considered AI, once they get sufficiently to a technology, they just get a new name, and that becomes used as a technology off the shelf reliably, right? So in the early 80s, something called simulated annealing was invented. And it was one of the first really reliable algorithms one of the first algorithms that could reliably do global optimization. Not provably global optimization, but optimize better than local optimizers without getting stuck so easily, right? And it was sufficiently reliable that it could be used for circuit design, for placement and routing of circuits. So it did, right? So in the 80s, several companies built uh, tools that ended up being used by chip designers in practice throughout the 80s, that then you would get when you are using in your Intel microprocessor or your IBM processor or whatever, right? So simulated annealing was to summarize, simulated annealing was an AI of the 80s. People wouldn't call it AI anymore, but it was an AI of the 80s. Myself, I was doing stuff considered AI in the 90s and 2000s. But the stuff of the 2000s, I was doing a lot of large scale machine learning. Now that's just called large scale machine learning. Back then, it was AI, right? And so and once again, that stuff also was used in circuit design and became, ubiquitous within the semi industry, and therefore in all the chips. Every single cell phone in the world has, say 20 chips, and they're all, they've all got chips designed by these AI powered tools, right? So, which brings us to present day. We're already seeing that sometimes, these things are called, simply chatbots. They're no longer AI, or they're AI, but they're also called large language models, and they've got a few more names. And over time, they become, the mundane name takes over, as it's no longer sort of a mystery of how, or it's much more reliable. Basically, it's sometimes it's still a mystery, right? Like most people who drive cars don't know how engines work, but they don't care as long as the thing works,
Mm-hmm.
right?
True.
So, so for 2023, we saw a couple of big advances, right? From a pure AI practitioner standpoint, it was just sort of more scale, right? Another 10x, 100x scale, depending how you measure it. But when you get a 10x, you tend to have qualitatively observable change. This isn't just for AI; it's kind of for anything, right? If a vehicle can go 10x faster, if a car can go 10x faster, it's no longer, it's something different, right? It's in the sense of you can get benefits, like cars go 10x faster than horses. That's probably a better example, right? Um, or if your computer goes 10x faster, all that. If you get 10x more bandwidth, now you can watch movies online instead of just listen to music, right? That sort of thing. So 10x is really, really important because while it's just a numerical number, it means you've got a qualitative change, and that's a very good rule of thumb to understand. So AI in the last year underwent a 10x in terms of scale, but then what that meant was qualitatively new capabilities. The capabilities we saw were really great generative art that was no longer in the realm of toys. That was, anyone could use. That was reliable enough for anyone to use and play with, right? And we saw that with, I think it was GPT-3, as well as Stable Diffusion, which made it all open source, right? And then more recently with Chat GPT, which you can think of as GPT 3.5. That was the first time that we had, it could basically answer a bunch of questions that previous chatbots could not, right? Like, chatbots go back to Elisa, which was, I think that was the 70s, and it was a very simple, stupid chatbot, right? And, as soon as, the World Wide Web came out, you could download, Elisa and Elisa clones. And I had one that I trained to talk like Homer Simpson, I remember, right? So, but Trent's Homer Simpson couldn't do very much. But now these modern chatbots, the ones powered by like the one like ChatGPT, can do a lot more. And in one case, it can fool more people into believing it's human.
Yeah.
Pass the Turing test in many ways. Um, but also, where's it going to be used ultimately? I don't know, right? I look at the examples for how it's, someone used it to generate some DeFi trader, and they thought, oh wow, it's game over. But I looked at the code, and it wasn't game over, right? It was super basic, super silly. But in use cases such as like GitHub Copilot, where it's helping to automatically generate code to refactor and stuff, that can be really useful. And people have been working on AI to help refactor code for at least 10 or 20 years. I've seen a lot in the world of genetic programming, and it was really good, right? Like there was human competitive stuff of refactoring code via genetic programming 10 years ago. There's even some awards won for that stuff. So I see that's going to be a really great thing. You can view that as a CAD tool for software developers, right? So I think that will help. I see that in the world of um, music and visual art and so on. It's a bit different because with music, myself as a consumer, I can only listen to one song at a time, and so it doesn't matter if there's you can't build a song on a song on a song on a song. Ultimately, I'm just hearing the same song. Whereas with a chip, you can have a chip have 10x more transistors and then another 10x, another 10x. You can have, complexity build on complexity. Um, so we're gonna have this explosion of songs and visual art and images come out. But we already sort of have had an explosion of images for other reasons, I guess. But that we're not, you can't build on those images personally and stuff, right? As a human, because you can only consume so much. But hopefully that does mean that, quite often with more quantity, you do get more quality. Because let's say that, like, um, basically it pushes out the distribution on both ends, right? You get a bunch more bad stuff, but you get some more good stuff too, right? Will the AI generated stuff lead to that? I don't know, but maybe. If you have an artist that is able to generate, songs 10 times faster, they can explore really good songs faster rather than spending so much time, polishing their songs, right? So maybe we'll see that for songs, for visual art, like for images, for movies, and for writing as well, novels and short stories, right? So I'm hopeful for that. But at the same time, so the quality will go up. But yeah, because the quantity will go up, I'm hopeful that the quality will go up, but no guarantees. But I think that honestly, still, that obviously affects all the creatives of the world. And my PhD was in creative AI as well, right? In the 2000s, and it was on creative AI for circuit design. But within the realm of circuit design, engineers, especially the analog designers, they consider themselves creative, and they are. Like they have, look at their designers, like, wow, how did they come up with that, right? And I found myself, writing algorithms, showing this to analog designers, and then saying, no, 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 I don't want that. I don't want that. Am I going to lose a job? And what I realized was, um, no, you could frame it like, we're going to steal all your jobs. This tool is going to steal all your jobs, but ultimately it didn't. And I never framed it like that, or I learned very quickly not to frame it like that because I realized what made more sense was it's a tool for the analog designer, right? And so, and it allows them to explore, new circuit design topologies faster, that to assess the quality of them faster, et cetera, et cetera. So basically they would end up with higher quality designs, and that's what I see here too for visual art, for music, for writing, etc. It allows creatives to explore the design space faster, such that any given creative can end up with a higher quality piece of music, visual art, etc. In the end, right? That's what I think will happen. What I hope will happen. Um, that said, maybe some will lose jobs because maybe they're just, commercial artists just copying and pasting, not being creative. So that will go away, but maybe they'll find ways to be creative in new ways, right? Um, so that's a partial summary, but I think that's only half the story for AI. So I think the other half is, GPT-4 will come out, and 5 and so on, as well as hopefully open source versions, on the heels of Stable Diffusion, etc. And if you thought GPT 3.5 was revolutionary, what about the next version and the version after that and the version after that, right? So I think we're 2023, we could have a lot bigger change than we expect. And the folks at OpenAI, Sam Altman and others, have been hinting at this already, right? Um, and so, and this actually comes down to what Ocean is about too, right? Like, I really, really hope that the power of really amazing, large language models doesn't end up in the large language models, large visual models doesn't end up in the hands of just one or two, large centralized companies, right? But we can level the playing field, and that's what Ocean is about, right? So, as this stuff comes out, we're going to be there with Ocean and with the tools for our community to help people level the playing field, right? And Ocean itself to be a tool for catalyzing leveling the playing field, right? Um, and what will this stuff lead to, by the way, like the GPT-4 and 5 and stuff? It is the realm of sci-fi, right? And it does mean, jobs are going to get lost, right? And what do we do about that, right? And I've actually written about that in the past too, and I see that there's quite a few different opportunities. But one of the big ninja tricks, I think, is AIs themselves. If we can basically get them, like, have them where they're really good at generating wealth, but not so smart that they sort of can wake up, then let's get them to generate wealth running as public decentralized infrastructure, right? Have self-driving, self-owning cars that have 10% of their wealth going back to the humans, right? And the rest just accruing, right? Or maybe once they pay for themselves, they give all of it back to the humans. We'll see, right? So I hope that that's what happens, right? But we'll see. If we don't, though, it could be very dark, right? Because AI, right now, the AI that we see is having centralizing tendencies, and decentralization is the force for decentralization that hopefully will help to pull back the centralizing force of AI right now and sort of balance it out. And ultimately, if we do this right, then we can end up where everyone in civilization is that much wealthier rather than just a small group of people.
Yeah. I mean, I have mixed feelings, like excited and scary at the same time, but we knew this coming for like a long time. And maybe it will go like into excessive use and then the balance that you spoke about. So let's see. Very
Yeah.
exciting times. And with that, thank you, Trent, really for joining us. This was such enriching conversation. So much to look forward in Ocean and so much to look forward generally in the industry. Thank you so much for your time. And please, to all listeners, download our podcast, give us a rating on Apple. That helps us a lot. And till next time, thank you.